Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are well underway into our modern prog rock week, and we are coming up with another veteran, both of the channel and of prog rock in general, I suppose. We're going to get some more Steven Wilson up in here. And Wilson is one of those interesting artists. We've had, this will be the third song, I think, from Steven Wilson on the channel, and the first two were extremely different. We had a very emotional, atmospheric rock track, and then a quasi-pop rock? More like pop with a splash of rock ideas in it. Very much moving in the modern, like techno idea of pop, utilizing a lot of electronica and digital features in the music. So now we're going to see maybe another side of Steven Wilson. This one is called Luminol, and it looks like it comes off of the album The Raven That Refused to Sing. So assuming that is correct, then it comes off the same album as that very emotive rock track. So yeah, let's dig into this. Let's see what else Steven Wilson's got up his sleeve. Yeah, you hear that bass? Ooh, that drumming. That is some gorgeous drumming right there. Oh, tasty. Huge jazz influence right here. All right. Yeah, that was some harmonization. Just a little bit. Tad. Ooh. Those bass kick skips. We're 2 minutes in. I feel like this whole thing's been bass led so far, and I'm loving it. So we got 15 beat phrases. So we have a 16 beat phrase and a 15. Yeah. Yeah, that's cymbal work. Oh. Alright, we're bringing this section back. Yeah, I love the rhythmic synergy there. That guitar work with the cymbal rhythm. Dang, I was really digging that little transition. Those 4 bars, I thought we were moving somewhere new. And the transition into it was real nice. Wouldn't be a prog song without a slow burn middle though, right?
Oxfam panache and tips his hat. Laces undone. He has no truck with idle chat. Work to be done. The songs he learned from scratched LPs. Stops in mid-flow to sip his tea. He strums the chords with less than grace. Songs we all know. Each passing year etched on his face. Sun, rain or snow. The words he sings are not his own. They speak of things he'll never know.
You know what this section needs though? Steel brushes on that snare. I mean, I'm digging that little roll with the mallets, with the drumsticks. But yeah, some steel brushes would have sounded so good right here. There's like some background noises there of like children talking. Yeah, that delayed harmony work is nice. Yeah, so we're doing dotted halves on all those entries. Getting that nice syncopation from on beat to off beat. dude, that one beat of silence with the synths on it, yeah. It's a lot more ominous than the rest of the track. There's something menacing here that hasn't been present yet. Dang. Alright, you're bringing this back. So yeah, we're gonna bring it full circle for this outro. Digging that. Dang, that's the second time that part has come in, and it is a transition, and I want that part to be a full section so bad. Alright, so far this is easily my favorite Steven Wilson piece. There is just so much good stuff going on in here. But I think anybody who suggested it, kind of already knows that it's going to be a kind of a big deal for me. Especially if they picked up on the fact that a majority of this is jazzy. The instrumentation is a little not jazzy. The flute definitely has more of, I don't know. There is jazz flute playing, but to me, it's not part of the big band. And the big band sound is kind of, that key sound of jazz. When you think of big band, you're thinking of your big brass, your trumpets, your trombones, even your brass made woodwinds like your saxophones. You're not. I mean, there are wood based woodwinds. What? You know what though? Do they make a brass flute? Because flute is not made out of wood like clarinets are. But I mean, yes, you can play clarinet in jazz too. You can play any instrument in a jazz setting. Jazz is about the music, but the big band sound is usually like, your big brass, your trombone and your trumpets. Um, Maybe if you want to get some warmer sounds, maybe like a flugelhorn. And then your saxophones, usually some tenors and then a bari. Maybe an alto. Yeah, you could have a big band with an alto sax in it. Um, but yeah, so like there's a lot of instrumentation in here that is outside of sort of that stereotypical big band jazz sound. But so much of the writing, especially in the rhythmic work, um, and the way that the notes are played around each other, and especially the drumming and the bass, their rhythm section, it just screams jazz to me. There's no way that Steve didn't. Can I call him Steve? There's no way that Steven Wilson didn't have some jazz influence on the bass and drum sections for this, and even some of the piano work feels very jazzy. And it's just, yeah, that sort of jazz foundation with more of a prog rock writing on top of it is just, it's going to sound good every time. I don't think you can mess it up. You could completely write a trash song and be like, yeah, that was all right, that worked for me. Just because of that combination of ideas. um it's just that is some bread and butter to me. It just works so well. um but I don't think that that's even like the most interesting aspect here. I'd say that Steven Wilson, at least in this song, which I would say is maybe the most true to, not true to himself, uh his standard writing, I guess you could say, because the pop rock stuff I've heard from quite a few people is basically his newer stuff. Was that Personal Shopper is sort of his new project, something he's getting into now, and some of his older fans aren't too happy with it. And then the Raven That Refused to Sing was more of a fringe case as far as his writing goes. It was more of an emotional song, and that's not necessarily indicative of his typical works. And this is kind of what I'm assuming is maybe more typical for him, especially given his love for prog rock. Um, he has done a ton of remasters of older 70s prog rock stuff, and I kind of associate his name with prog rock, even though this is the first time I've actually heard a prog rock song of his. So, um, yeah, it does not, it would not surprise me if this is sort of his more typical works. And if it is, this is either a fantastic entry or I've been hit with the best and everything's downhill from here. Because this was just phenomenal. Um, First of all, it I have to ask if this is a full group. Yeah, see, I don't. I mean, I guess here is a little. Yeah, of course that would happen. So here's a little thumbnail from a live version of Luminol, and yeah, I can't really see much from it. Please don't autoplay. I want to see this thumbnail. And of course, it autoplayed. So, all right, I'm concerned, interested, intrigued by how many people are playing. Now, this, for all I know, could be the studio version, and it could all be digital, all, VSTs. Maybe he called in some friends and they recorded them separately and emailed him the stems for what they contributed. Maybe he just recorded it all himself. I don't know how talented the guy is as a musician. I know he's a pretty good singer, and I think he plays guitar well. I kind of remember that from Porcupine Tree, but I'm also not 100% sure which one was Steven Wilson, so I could be thinking about the wrong person from that band. But the chops on display here were phenomenal across several instruments, and if it is all Steven, wow, geez, just what a powerhouse. Um, so I'm kind of leaning towards maybe not. I could see him doing the vocals. I could see him doing the guitar work, maybe the drum work. I don't know, where he sits on guitars. Maybe piano, but I mean flute too. Xylophone. I mean, where does this guy's skill end? So, yeah, I guess that's the first question I have for Steven Wilson fans, especially for this specific song, is what did he contribute as a musician to this composition? Was it all him? Is some of it digital? Did he have to, because some of the stuff like the flute work sounded good. If it was digital, if that was some sort of a virtual library for flute, it is an expensive virtual instrument. That's all I've got to say. Um, but I'm leaning towards a live recording on that one. And that brings me back to my question: did Steven record that flute? Because that solo was a little dirty. It was just skillful. Like, if so, the dude's got chops on so many instruments. And if it wasn't him, like I said, I'm wondering where that line is drawn. Not to say that the guy isn't or can't be multi-talented as a composer and a musician and just knocks it out of the park on like every instrument he touches. That could definitely be the case, but like I said, the dude's got a superpower at that point. So I am curious on where that line is drawn. Um, but let's talk about the drums. I think the drum and the bass are what really tie this song together for me. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of phenomenal sections here. There's a lot of things I could talk about. If I had, written all the concepts down, I could probably talk about this song for a few hours. There's just so many good things in here, but I think the key part is the rhythms, the rhythm section. Um, Partly because the rhythm section doesn't really change much. I mentioned that at the 2 minute mark, the song had been fairly bass driven. The bass did kind of fall out of the spotlight a bit towards the middle and end of the track, but it's not like it was gone. And unlike a lot of the other instruments, which the melody kept jumping between timbres, the bass pretty much kept its tone throughout. Same with the drums. They are the two concepts that did not make any metamorphosis throughout the song. We had our drum, we had our bass guitar, and they kept their sound and sort of their style from start to finish. And it is really the glue holding this whole thing together, keeping it sounding cohesive no matter what. Regardless of if we have like a full on metal section at the end or we've entered into a nice quiet, like club jazz sound in the middle, the drum and the bass are holding it all together and keeping some sort of foundational identity together to hold the whole song in place. And I don't know if that was done intentionally. Maybe the drum kit was just him playing drums, and that's just the only sound. It's not like he wanted to buy extra kits for this or mess around with the tone digitally or something. And it could just be that's that was his drum kit, so it just was the same throughout. It could have just been a limitation of equipment, but in the end, it does keep the song held together as a single identity, and I don't think that could be understated. The song could very easily have fallen apart near the end. I think the first two sections were actually we stuck around with them pretty lengthy. We had the opening jazzy section, which led into it got a little bigger. It opened up. We had more layers, and then that gave way for the first quiet section. And like I said, we stuck with those for a while. But at the end, we started moving through some ideas, mostly timbre wise. I would say a lot of the compositional stuff was rather standard. We didn't really change around with how we wrote things. It's what we wrote things for. We jumped around a lot of instruments there, and it's very important when you change timbres a lot that you have a root sound for the audience to latch onto, and the drum and bass just did that in spades. Not to mention the fact that they constantly called attention to themselves. Both of them were just played so well. Their lines were technical but tasty. Sorry. I mean, they were technical and tasty for sure, but also, they had their moments of being subdued. It was more of the embellishments, the little ornamentations, where they got a little fancy. But for the most part, they just kind of sat there and existed. The spotlight was put on them. You couldn't forget about them, but they definitely, left a lot of room for what was going to be the melody. And yeah, just I don't think you can understate how important the drums and bass were, and just how well. I mean, you can't make a perfect song. You can't make a perfect part. There can always be some improvement to it. I mentioned the drums could use some steel brushes there in the middle, and I stand by that. Steven Wilson, if somehow you come across this video and you decide to listen to some guy who's written a lot less of things than you, and you get to this point, steel brushes. Put that in your repertoire. I want to hear a future song with some steel brushes on the snare. Just a nice little, circle with a tap. Yeah, so nice. And it would have fit so well in that section. Um, Now I'm picturing Steven watching this, but like, what is this guy? Who is this guy? He's telling me how to write music? Oh man, just disrupted my whole thought process for a dumb joke. Oh man, drums, bass were done extremely well. Um, yeah, and like I said, I can't even if it was an accident. Like I said, it could have just been a technical limitation. Is the only kit they had. Maybe um, he didn't have any like bass things on his computer and his DAW to really modify that too much. Maybe he just really loved the tone. I don't know. Or it could have been done intentionally. But the fact that they are pretty much the only constants from start to finish, and they are just written so well that combination really ties the whole song together. I can't understate that. I really can't. I also can't overstate. It's just so good. It's so important to this track. Um, I love the way that so many timbres get utilized tastefully. There, like I said, there could have been a lot of issues here with all of the different textures and sounds that get used, how the melody is constantly jumping between instruments. It could have been a mess. And while I do put a lot of weight on the rhythm section for kind of keeping the song together, you can't undercut the composition either. The way that each of the instruments are written and the way that they each have their own personality. There is still a standard composition style that goes for all the melodies. I don't know if that's just Steven Wilson's personal flair, if that's just how he writes. Everybody has their own biases and sort of shortcuts and ruts that they fall into with their writing. Everybody has their own their own style of writing. You kind of you write what you're good at. You can go outside of your comfort zone, but everybody's got that zone that feels really good, um, and they fall into and they can fall into that pocket. And I don't know if necessarily this is Steven's writing, but almost all the melody lines had familiar concepts to them as far as the composition went. But the way that he utilized, especially rhythmic elements, with each of the instruments gave them all a very special personality. It's not like we kept hearing the same melodic ideas just with different textures. Every instrument almost seemed like a different voice, a different character in a story. And you can tell, just like in a story, that there's an underlying similarity to everybody. Even the best writers are going to have their tendencies slip out into their characters, no matter how different their characters should be. There's going to be the writer's stereotypes, if you could say, written into the characters, and you can see that here too. But I think the fact that they still end up feeling unique, every single voice in here. I mean, that's just good writing, right? And like I said, I think it's kind of important as well because the song could have fallen apart. So you need that through line, that connection. How every one of these instruments, every single one of these melody lines has sort of a similar feel. But I also think it's important to have them all feel different so that the song doesn't end up feeling samey. Um, so yeah, just the composition as a whole is just really well done. Um, and then I think the two parts that really bring this back together, there were two reprises. Um, One of them was that like 4 bar, really moody atmospheric part that transitioned us into the slow section at like the 3 or 4 minute mark, and then was brought back at the end to close the song out. And then the other section is, I think it was the quarter note, the dotted quarter note section where we were moving between on beat and off beat. I think that was brought back at the end as well. There's another section that I said, yeah, we're going back to that, and I think that was it. But those little motifs where we reprise old ideas and bring it forward, we're like, oh yeah, we're still listening to the same song, right? It's a conversation, and we've got some callbacks going on, and yeah, I think that's necessary. You can write a straight up rhapsody and just be completely different from start to finish, but I think for me personally, I think some of the best writing I've heard tends to have some callbacks, even if it's not as blatant as this. Maybe it's just some subtle things. An old bass line is showing up in a violin part now. 3 minutes later or something. Just having some sort of through lines from the past to the present really ties a song together. And if you want to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the mix or in the song, you just straight up bring an old section back. And yeah, I think it was done very well. We had two little minors. It's not like we brought back full 1 or 2 minute sections. They were more of miniature concepts. The one, like I said, was a 4 bar transition, but just bringing it back was like, oh yeah, I remember that. We're still in the same universe here. So yeah, just exceptional song from start to finish. Um, it's I say this, I think, after every Steven Wilson video, but I am intrigued. The dude just does not seem to. All three songs these have been so different. So I am still curious about what else this guy does. Also, what instruments does he play? From earlier, I asked. I'm still curious about that. Did he play everything on here, or was there a limit to his performance, to his musical superpower? However, once again, I'm also going to add that while I love this song, to me it's more of a work of art. It's not something I would casually listen to. I am glad I've heard it. I might listen to it again in the future, but it's something that you really have to be in the right mindset for, and it's more of a one time, like, oh yeah, I need to listen to Luminol. You listen to it once, you're like, all right, I'm good for now. I might come back to it in a few months, might come back to it in a couple of years, but it's not something that I'd put in a car to really jam to, and that's just my personal tastes. But as a work of art, rather than casual artistic consumption, I rank this pretty high. This is a fantastic work of art right here. Just fantastic song altogether. But those are just my thoughts. This for you guys. I don't know why I point to like my chest. These are my thoughts. And I'm speaking through my mouth. These are where I should be pointing. But I always point like, these are my thoughts. All right. So yeah, that's what I think of it. This is where you guys come in though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed it, if you didn't. If you have any answers to my questions about Mr. Steven Wilson. If you know if I can call him Steve. Steven, if you're watching this, can I call you Steve? If you're still here, I mean, if you weren't offended 10 minutes ago when I said that you probably should have added some steel brushes. If you're still somehow here at like the 35-minute mark, can I call you Steve? Uh, yeah, anyways, though, hit me up in the comments with stuff, your ideas. There's a comment, there's a description box with some links adjacent to the channel if you'd like to check out my Patreon or my Discord. It's also a like, subscribe, and a bell button. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with some more modern prog rock. Pretty excited about this week. I'm especially, one of those words, excited about Friday. My pick is something that's got me curious, not because I know anything about the band, I actually don't, but it's Friday, and if you've been part of the Discord, there is some discussion that happens on Fridays about something that happens every Friday for a few weeks now. And yeah, the name of this band reminds me of that, and I think it just kind of lines up too well to not do that. Yeah, maybe it's not. It's the name of the song, isn't it? Yes, and the name of the song just kind of lines up too well with conversations we've been having on Fridays in the Discord. So it's too perfect to pass that one up. So I'm excited to get around to that one. All right. Anyways, this is me going out. Thanks for listening and chatting and dropping comments. Yada yada yada. Remember to be critical and not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.